Greetings, Gateway Gators, and welcome to our final monthly bonus of the school year, our June monthly bonus. I am so excited to dive into our project today because we are going to be making little critter houses for all the different insects and bugs that end up pollinating or just living in our gardens. Well, Gators, I dug around in my recycle to see what kind of containers that I could reduce and reuse. I found some larger containers here, as well as an empty water bottle, a little can of nuts. So I'm going to see how I can use all of these in order to create some different types of bug hotels. Now, different bugs require different environments to live in, but what's most important is to make sure that when you're filling up your containers that they're nice and compact, because we don't want wind or weather to be blowing them away and having them fall apart. So a nice compact dry area is the best thing to do. You can have a hanging bug hotel. You can just have it resting on the ground. If you are putting it on the ground, making sure that there are some rocks or twigs on top of it, so that way there's some drainage in case it rains. But for now, it is time to go ahead and find some materials for our bug hotel. This is a really fun way to think about what is on the ground. That means we're not necessarily snapping branches off of trees. We're looking to see what nature has in store. These can be pine cones, dried leaves. It is nice to look for fallen branches and other material. A great place to look would be around the woods in Lincoln Park or Camp Long if you're wanting to go local, maybe even Hiawatha Playfield, and maybe even your own garden. I'm going to go ahead and start collecting and seeing what I can find on the ground here. Well, I have gathered up a whole bunch of fun nature objects in my handy nature basket here. You do not need this many supplies. This is just so that I can show you a few different ways to go about it. But what I am going to do is lay out all of my supplies and kind of sort them based on the material. So branches in one spot, leaves in the other, pine cones in the other. That way it's a little easier when it comes to the assembly process to cluster them all together. I'm going to put my containers that I'm going to use over to one side, including a little water bottle that I found and I cut a hole into. If you are going to do any kind of cutting, make sure to have your parents, guardians, adults help you out with that, so that way you do not accidentally cut yourself. Got a bunch of branches here. I'm going to put my fir branches that have needles on them right over here. I'll have my pine cones over here. My moss is in another spot, and next to my moss, I'm definitely going to put some of that lichen. I also have dried leaves right here, and I also gathered some dried pieces of bark from the madrona tree and from what looks to be a type of fir. Put that over here. Now that all my supplies are arranged, I'm excited to go ahead and start putting it all together. This is the fun part where you get to think about ways to cluster your materials for bugs to be attracted to it. I'm going to go ahead and start with my little open water bottle because there is this little dip in it. I'm going to start by maybe filling it with a few pine cones here. Remember, we want things to be nice and compact, which means that if they're loose, they're going to fall out. So trying to really cram those items in. All I need really are about 3 pine cones, and now I'm going to start with my next layer. I think I'm going to use some twigs next. You can go ahead and stick your twig into whatever container you're doing to give an idea about the length that you need it. So it only needs to be about this long. I'm going to go ahead and start snapping my branches so that they're all right around that length. You don't need too many. It's nice to have some different sized ones, maybe some that still have a little bit of lichen or moss on them. Next to this pine cone, I'm going to put my twigs. Now I'm going to hold my twigs in place and maybe add just a few more before I start with a moss layer. Alright, I'm going to put my moss on top of these twigs. Hopefully that holds it in place nicely. Seems to be doing the trick. And now I'm going to add some bark. Just like with the twigs, you're going to go ahead and break it up to fit in the spot. See some of the light coming through. Those are great little hiding places for your bugs. I think I'm going to add a little bit of fur now to my collection here before adding another layer of twigs. Getting close to the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide a pine cone or two up here. This not only allows for more spaces for critters to crawl into, but it also holds these materials together. We still have a little bit of space and I don't want this to fall apart, so I am going to add some more branches to it. Now, even after adding these branches, I do have some loose ends. This is maybe where some filler comes in handy. This could be lichen, moss, dried leaves. I'm going to shove that up into the top of my bottle, so that way things hold together and just allows just one more different kind of space for a critter to go inside. Well, there you have it. Here's my first bug hotel. Let's go ahead and see if we can make another. Now, just a quick tip, whenever you use cans or other materials that have paper on them, you should remove the paper first, just because there are dyes in here that we don't want to have disintegrate. This is a fun little container. You could always put it inside of a bigger container just to allow some different spaces. I have noticed that people make different layers using toilet paper or paper towel rolls. That's a really fun way to go. For now, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can make one, adding a couple of containers together. Measure the length of my container. We don't want it going too much further out, and start breaking up those branches. Alright, I have a nice little cluster to get started with my container here, laying them on the bottom but trying to keep them as together as possible. And now I'm going to shove some pine cones into this container to add along with it. And I want to do these lengthwise so that I can get the most amount of pine cones in here. So I'm going to settle it in here. Arrange my sticks so that they don't fall out too much, and then I am going to do a little fur layer, or actually a leaf layer here. Combining those all together, followed by some fir branches. Alright, next layer I want to do some lichen. Have a nice little soft spot on the bottom here that really secures my pine cones in place. And there's not a whole lot of space left. I do notice this is a little bit loose, so what I'm going to do is take some pieces of bark and stick them along the edges. Have some nice texture to them for our critters, and just slide those in to fit in. Remember that sometimes these things fall apart faster than others. Sometimes they don't turn out as pretty as we want them to be, but what matters is that we're making them functional for bugs, and also being a little green by reusing our containers here. Now I have got my final little container. It is filled to the brim, making sure that it's nice and compact. Pressing it down, that way it does not slide up. Well, there you have it. Well, Gators, I hope you had a fun time. Please go ahead and explore the monthly bonuses of the years past if you are feeling inspired to do some fun activities during the summer months. And I hope to see you all next year for our September monthly bonus. Bye, everyone.